Okay, well, my name's Andy Fox, and I'm here at Truth Juice 2011, and came here for many different reasons. But one of the things I came to do was to do a talk on the open mic evening, and one of the things that's closest to my heart is about vaccinations, and the reason why vaccinations became such an important issue for me is before my first son was born, I had a feeling it was the wrong thing to do, and I just started to do a degree in nutrition, and so I started to ask many questions, and my wife Vicky and I decided that we weren't going to vaccinate my eldest son, and the reasons then was just because I was questioning some of the ingredients that were being put in there, and to be quite honest, and the sort of ethical and moral things around that as well. I mean, I'd kind of read a little bit about sort of the relation from sort of autism and other various things, but still I didn't have enough knowledge at the time. But I decided, well, Vicky and I decided not to, and I lost many friends over this because of a lot of the propaganda that's been put onto us, and our doctors and our the health visitors were putting a lot of pressure on us to vaccinate, but I just firmly said to them that no, we're not going to do it. You know, I've made an informed choice, and that started to, from there I just started to look deeper into it, and as it is with these things, you look a bit further down the rabbit hole and it expands even further, and so I started to look at some of the research, and there was a Danish study done on MMR jabs. Misrepresentation of the information was phenomenal, and so I started to look further, and eventually I came across a lady called Anna Watson. So big shout to Anna, who's doing a terrific job with her group, Arnica Group, and you can find them on www.arnica.org. And
what do they do?
What they do, they give impartial advice, so to speak. What they do is that they meet every month in Kingston, which is Kingston upon Thames, and they'll talk about vaccinations and give you the facts, and to try and help parents to make decisions, because what it is that you'll get somebody who's made a decision not to vaccinate the child, and then they'll have a friend, and they've come to the Arnica group and got that information and decided that they're not going to, and then they might have a friend who they feel, well, come and look at this. So it's word of mouth, but also just to be able to give people the real facts, not the sort of tainted, construed ones that you get from the doctor saying, well, these are the graphs that show this and that and the other. So it's really a support group as well, and she does a fantastic job, and she gets guest speakers in sort of every 3 months, and I've got a lot of our friends who have not decided to vaccinate their children and using natural alternative ways, chiropractic, homeopathy, which has been chastised in the press lately. But yeah, coming back to it, it's just the reasons I just want to tell why people shouldn't vaccinate their children, not only because of the ingredients that are being put in, but also because of what people don't understand is that because they're told that, oh, this is the only way that you can protect your child against these horrible different diseases.
Which of course is nonsense, because vaccines only came in within the last 100 years.
Exactly. So what was happening 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, we didn't have them then. But also just the effect it has on the immune system, where we have our sort of innate immune system, non-specific immune system, if you want to call it. It's not the one that remembers. And what happens is that we can have an infectious disease or an illness or whatever for 24 to 36 hours before it actually manifests into the symptoms, and the body's already fighting that. So then there's a fine balancing act on this this non-specific part of the immune system, and that's all the digestive tract, the mucous membranes, our skin, everything. It's reacting, it's protecting our internal organs from whatever it is. And you have T helper cells 1 and T helper cells 2, and there's a fine balance that the Th1 is kind of like the security cameras and looks out for all these different viruses and bacteria. We're all covered in bacteria and viruses all the time, and it's our inner environment that affects how this ecological balance is. And so what happens normally is that you have a Th1 response. So therefore the body recognises the virus. It's a virus that needs to be gotten out of the body through the mucous membranes and the throat, etc. So this is where you get the classic symptoms of a sore throat, runny nose, that type of thing.
It's your body
Fever.
trying to purge itself.
It is. It uses temperature to kill off the viruses or the bacteria, and then it gets it out through the mucous membranes. That's the secretory IgA, which is the part of the it's a whole sort of cascade that happens, and that's when it flips to the Th2. That's the inflammatory response. That's the first part of becoming ill. Then you've got the actual releasing it all. So you've got the first part, which is when you don't notice that you're ill, and then you get that first feeling of, oh god, I feel a bit whatever. Then that second stage is when you're
when you're aware of it,
and your body's reacting and getting all these things out. You know, the viruses don't attack you, it's the body getting it out.
It makes you feel ill.
Yeah, it makes you feel terrible. But that's part of the process. And then you have the recovery phase as well. There's kind of 3 phases, but what the vaccines do, it bypasses that first phase altogether, because it just straight into your bloodstream. So there's no secretory IgA response, there's no non-specific immune system response. And these vaccines are just turbocharged with, adjuvants such as squalene and there's other stuff in there. I mean, they put antifreeze in.
MF59, is it?
Yeah.
Another adjuvant.
Yeah. There's polysorbate 80, there's thimerosal, which is a preservative, aluminium. There's just, the list is like endless. There's horrible things that they put in there. What that does then, it goes in and it can flip this switch. So it's constantly in a Th2 response, which is the inflammatory response. But because it's constantly there, because it flips it, it becomes chronic.
So you're constantly ill?
Well, yeah, because your Th1 goes down, so your ability to identify viruses becomes
weaker.
So therefore you become, you get, and this is where the chronic inflammatory response, and therefore we get things like allergies and constantly feeling ill. So
do you want to talk a little bit about the gut and the reflection on the head?
Yeah, with the so I mean this is where, because we've had a high increase in the autistic spectrum. I think it was 1 in, I can't remember the exact figures, but I think it was something like 1 in 70,000.
70,000?
Some 60 or 70,000. I think it was
a long time.
Like 20, 30 years ago, and now it's like 1 in 100.
Yes.
And that's obviously now they've got different names of different things because they're becoming so many of them and just slightly different in how they represent themselves. But yeah, with the gut, I mean, you got the gut to the brain relationship, and I mean that comes down to things like your gut instinct. So when you feel something is right and you get that gut feeling, because you manifest your thought in your gut before you do in your head. And this is where, primarily with the MMR vaccine, and what Dr. Andrew Wakefield was trying to bring around, is that they isolated one part of that that triple vaccine that was lying inside the gut and making it inflamed. And therefore this is where it kind of relates to, physically, but also on all different levels to the brain as well. And there's a whole research into that.
So the vaccine makes your stomach ill, pretty much.
It's the gut. It's the lining of the gut. Yeah.
And you don't ever really recover from that.
No, it becomes chronically inflamed. And I've got a friend called Kirsten, and she has a son, and he suffers terribly. But they've tried homotoxicology, which is homeopathically looking at toxins in particular, and they're calming down. Because if you ever see children with autism, that have been vaccine influenced, you find that they tend to be quite, when they're rocking and they're making noises, because they're in pain, they're in absolute agony with their gut, because it's just chronically inflamed. And the thing that really does it for me, and I've biggest utmost respect for Dr. Andrew Wakefield, is the fact that these families are being ignored, and for me, I just think that's a really
covered over, really.
Yeah.
Not just ignored,
no, but swept under the carpet, whatever. And his biggest thing at first was to try and bring that about. Why are we ignoring these people? And we all know what's happened to him over the last 10 or 12 years, which is he's a brave man.